Hi people, it's Archivist here, and today I'm going to be talking about how Star Wars Battlefront 2 became my favourite shooter of 2017, which to some of you may be quite surprising, as there was a lot of controversy heading up to the game's release and further still after the game came out, and there continues to be controversy. So a brief recap of what the main issue people had with the game coming up to its release was that EA wanted to implement what was essentially a pay-to-win system. You could spend real-world money, similar to what you might do in a free-to-play game, to get tangible advantages in combat via a loot box system. It was blatantly predatory and was identified as such by a lot of people, and the outcry was enormous. I would say it surpassed a Shadow of War situation by quite a bit, and it comes close to, quite frankly, the level of outcry we saw back when the Xbox One was first announced. This was on another level. And I was right there with a lot of people. I was a big fan of the original Battlefront, by which I mean 2015's Battlefront. I really liked the game, actually. A lot of people thought it was very simplistic and didn't offer too much, and although I understand that, I can't deny I had a lot of fun with the game. Checking EA Origin just a moment ago, I saw I put a total of 300 hours in there. Some of it might have been leaving it idle, but still, if that's 200 hours, that's a lot of time. I really enjoyed it, and I was deeply afraid that EA had done something that would fundamentally dismantle the competitive element of the game. However, after playing it now for over a month, I have come to really enjoy this game. I've played it a lot. Again, I can see how much I've played here, 58 hours, and I've enjoyed the vast majority of it. No, not all of it exactly. And some of that might be as a result of the fact that EA, as is quite well known now, repealed their decision to do pay to win before the game came out. So the loot boxes are still in the game, but not the ability to pay for them with real money. You have to earn the currency via gameplay, which is the way I think it should be. And I wanted to now, in some detail, go into why exactly I thought Star Wars Battlefront 2 is so great, and why I will continue to play it for hopefully many hours to come. And that begins really with two of my favourite game modes, Blast and Starfighter Assault. So I've already spoken in great detail about Starfighter Assault. I did an entire video dedicated to it, but I will just reiterate here, it is my favourite aspect of the game by some margin. It is the most unique gameplay that the game has to offer, and it's just something that really immerses you in the Star Wars universe. The visuals are spectacular, the gameplay is spectacular, the attention to detail is fantastic, the fact that it spans 3 of the main eras is great as well. The only thing holding it back from me recommending the game purely based on this is the fact that, as of now, there are only 6 maps. If there were 8 maps, which by all accounts there may be in the future with DLC to come, I could genuinely recommend Battlefront 2 purely based on this game mode, because it is just so much fun in my opinion. It won't be for everyone. Some people will want this game purely as a shooter, a traditional shooter, which this game mode surely is not, but for me, as someone who really enjoys the frenetic nature, the fast-paced action of Starfighter Assault, I think it is genuinely fantastic. And what I've found with my hours of experience is that the star cards don't impact the gameplay in an overwhelming sense. I have seen a couple of high-level players with the most powerful star cards doing quite well, but the thing is, it's very difficult to determine, is that because of the star cards they own, or the fact that they own those star cards therefore indicates they've been playing the game a very long time by this point, and therefore have become naturally skillful at piloting a starfighter. You've also got the much improved heroes versus the original Battlefront in 2015, where rather than attaining them randomly via a token that happens to be somewhere on the map, you now have to actually play the objective and do well at the game to become a hero. So as a result, the idea here is that only skillful players will get heroes, therefore making the best use of them. And it's something for newer players to aspire to, because it means that they'll see these heroes that have been unlocked by players who have done well in the match and say, well, next time maybe if I contribute more to the team, to the objective, if I maybe stop just going after the AI bots and go after the objective itself, I will become a hero and I will get to have more fun as a result. So it's a vastly superior system to the original game. yeah, really, I am a massive fan of Starfighter Assault. I'm also, and this surprised me how much I like this, I'm a very big fan of Blast, which is ostensibly this game's version of Team Deathmatch, right? It's just kill as many of the enemy team as you can, and doing so will lead to victory. It's the most simplistic mode in this game, arguably, but it's also one of the most fun. And that's down to the sheer weight, I think, of the combat. And perhaps I'm out on my own here, but I do think the combat in this game feels very satisfying. It's not something that uses hit scan for the majority of weapons, it uses projectile based weapons. So the difference between hit scan and projectile is that a hit scan is basically you target an enemy and then an algorithm determines whether or not the hit lands. But with a projectile system, an actual laser is there. It's not just an animation, an actual laser goes forward and hits the enemy, which means that hitboxes are far more accurate. And it also means that in this game you have to lead the target, because lasers don't travel as fast as bullets do in normal games. So if someone's sprinting very quickly, if you want to get the headshot, you can't just do an easy target the head and fire. You have to intelligently shoot in front of them and hopefully snag a kill that way. And also you've got the various classes, you've got the Assault, the Heavy, the Specialist, and the Officer, which add dynamics to the gameplay because they play fairly differently. My favourite by some margin is the Assault. It's the most basic soldier, but I think it's the most fun. You've got a Scanner Dart, which reveals the locations of enemies, which means it's less random, you're not guessing where people are. You've got a Vanguard Shotgun, so if you're ever forced into close range, you can get an instant kill. It's just a very solid class that I really enjoy playing. I also quite like the Heavy, because the Heavy has the ability to deploy a shield in front of them, which at first I thought was ridiculously overpowered, because it basically means that any frontal assault against a Heavy is doomed to fail. However, when you kind of realise that you tackle a Heavy not by going up front, but you flank them and take them out, it becomes quite obvious that Heavies are not overpowered, they're just very strong at frontal assaults. But if you manage to outflank them, which is easy because of how slow they are, then their weaknesses become revealed. So if you are Heavy, the best way to play it is to sort of, if you can, get your flanks covered, be it by cover or your teammates. The Specialist is okay, though snipers aren't as powerful as in something like Call of Duty, but you know what, I don't mind that too much. I'm not a fan of how powerful snipers are in Call of Duty. I think they're too effective at even close range now. So the fact that snipers in this game are only really good if you're actually using them as a sniper is something that I definitely appreciate. Of course, you've also got the fact it's a third-person game if you so choose, so you get more situational awareness, you can look around cover, and I think that although by all means use first-person if you prefer to, I think third-person gives you a definite advantage, and all you have to do is hold down a button and you switch to it quite easily. And what I think is one of the most underrated but most important factors in making this game more enjoyable, to me at least, in something like even Call of Duty, which is regarded by many as the king of Team Deathmatch, is the roll button. So in this game you can roll in various directions with the hit of a button, which seems like a small thing, but believe me, it makes a world of difference. In so many games, if someone shoots you first because they saw you first, you are dead. You can move maybe left or right a bit to evade them, but if they get that first hit advantage, they are going to beat you. In this game, you at least have the opportunity to roll out of the way behind cover. It means you can at least fight back. I'd say that that person who hit you first still has the advantage, but it's not the death knell that it is in something like Call of Duty. This game, I think, is good for, if nothing else, the fact that I don't die from getting shot in the back so much as I do in other games. And yeah, if you want to really enjoy the Blast match in this game, absolutely make good use of the roll. It makes a world of difference, and as I've noticed through play, it makes a difference between a good player and a great player, and it really adds that extra level of nuance to the gameplay. And that's something that I would really object to, is people calling the combat in this game simplistic. I really don't think it is. There is one aspect to it which is maybe a little simplistic, in that you don't really gain any extra accuracy by holding down the left trigger to get a zoom. It's more about just allowing you to zoom in. But when you consider all factors to the combat, the star cards, the abilities, the role that I just mentioned, it becomes something that is oddly dynamic. And I am playing at the moment both this game and Call of Duty together, and I will say this, I vastly prefer Star Wars because it feels far less random. It's got so many abilities that it gives you at your disposal that you feel like if you master them, you really do have the ability to tackle most situations. Also in Blast, you have 2 elite units. So if you get 1,000 battle points, you earn the Rocket Trooper, which has a jetpack and a rocket. And if you earn 2,000 points, you get access to the Heavy Trooper, which can be like a Wookiee or a Super Battle Droid. And this one tends to have more health. It's the strongest unit, at least what the game deems to be the strongest unit. So effectively, this is what this game's version of kill streaks is, although you don't have to get actual kill streaks without dying, you just have to acquire the points over time. So it's fair to say that even a modest player can become an elite unit in a game. I wouldn't say that they are overwhelmingly strong, particularly some of the Dark Stormtroopers, the Heavy Stormtroopers, although they are very tough. You'll find that people tend to target them in mass and they can go down very quickly and they're very large, so they're very big hitboxes. My personal favourite, and this probably won't come as a surprise if you're watching the gameplay here, is the Rocket Trooper. Not because of the rocket they have, but because of the jetpack. This jetpack gives you so much survivability potential. Because as I mentioned earlier, the role really gives you the ability to get out of danger when need be. The rocket allows you to dodge more often because there isn't the cooldown, and you can do an outright jump to get out of danger if need be. On maps like Mos Eisley that don't have a ceiling, you can use this to fantastic advantage where you can go to rooftops, get out of conflicts, and you can go on these massive kill streaks just by being super evasive. You're not necessarily a class that is overwhelmingly powerful, but you can survive for a very long time, and I really enjoy playing the rocket class. And as a result, I very rarely play the heavy class. Even if I have 2,000 battle points, I do tend to do better as a rocket trooper. So as a result, in most Blast games, you have 6 different potential classes you can choose from. 4 are standard that you can start with, and 2 you unlock in the middle of a game via battle points. Battle points being just acquired through killing other players, doing well, basically, which is how I think you should be rewarded, by doing well. And, you know, again, the star card's impact. Well, it's very hard yet again to tell, is this making a monumental difference? Well, Blast, more so than any other game mode, should have highlighted to me if the star cards were making a significant difference. I've played classes at the lowest level of star cards and the highest level, and I don't necessarily think it's giving me an overwhelming advantage, just a small one, little bump. It's usually not a case that you're getting something that will allow you to go on a massive kill streak, take a supreme advantage against other players. It's usually just a nice little advantage that, you know, if I'm perfectly honest with you, I wish it wasn't there. I wish that Blast was free of star cards, that it was just purely based on skill, but it hasn't stopped me enjoying the game knowing that I don't necessarily have the most powerful star cards. Also, something I'd like to mention, which I really appreciate about this game, but maybe not everyone will. The original Battlefront in 2015 did not have aim assist if you chose to use a controller on the PC. So I don't know if anyone else is in the situation where you played 2015 Battlefront with a controller on the PC, but you may have found the aiming was very difficult. It was very hard to aim. And that was because there was absolutely zero aim assist at all. So you were truly at the mercy of people who used a mouse and keyboard as a result. In this game, however, there is an aim assist for certain. If you're aiming slightly close to someone and you hold the left trigger down, it will snap straight to them, which is the indication that aim assist is in play. Also, I noticed that my stick will gravitate around a player so that it's much easier to aim. And if you're a mouse and keyboard user, you may not like that because mouse and keyboard is deemed the more accurate, more precise, more elite way to play. And us controller users are just casual scumbags. But the thing is, I do genuinely like just to sit back in my chair when I play games. I'm not super competitive, and I'd wager there are a lot of people like that. So the fact that aim assist is in this game to some extent is very well appreciated, and I'm glad it's here. I mean, if it was in Battlefield 1, it can be here, right? So one of the things that I dislike most about Battlefront 1 on the PC has been fixed for me, which I'm very happy about. But let's move on to a portion of the game which I have something of a love-hate relationship with. And that's Galactic Assault, which is sort of like the poster boy game mode for this, because it's the epic Star Wars all-out multiplayer assault this game has to offer. And funnily enough, this is the game mode least impacted by star cards, simply because the chaotic nature of it means that only small advantages will ever come with them. This game mode can be really, really fun and super epic, but it also feels the least balanced, and it can just be absolute mayhem, and not in a good way sometimes. And to illustrate my point, I've used Yavin as an example, playing as the Empire. So for the majority of this map, I quite enjoy it. Graphically, it's very immersive, the size and scope of your army is strong, you're spread out quite thin initially as you go through the forest, and the objectives are reasonably easy to take. They're not necessarily skewed too far either side. And yeah, generally it's a lot of fun, and you get to unlock various vehicles from Star Wars like the AT-ST, and heroes like Boba Fett, as you'll see me play in this game, or Darth Vader. You know, it's a lot of fun. And also something I'll say that I really appreciate in this game versus the old one in 2015 is that rather than tokens dictating whether you get a vehicle or a hero, is that it's now via battle points. And that makes a world of difference, because that means that now, rather than a random player getting access to them, it's now based around skill and contribution. So if you're someone that actually plays the objective and does something that helps your team win, you will be rewarded with the ability to play as Darth Vader, or to play as an AT-ST, or even an X-Wing if you're on a map that has sky combat. However, where I find this game mode can sometimes be a little frustrating is when it goes into close quarters. So I don't have anything inherently against close quarters combat, as I just mentioned with Blast, but when you get 40 players all fighting each other in very small corridors, it becomes chaotic to the point where it's not even fun anymore. There's so little you can do to influence your victory unless maybe you're playing as one of the hero classes. If you end up as just one of the basic classes in the final stages of Yavin in the close quarters combat, it can get a little out of control. So whereas in the open woodland and the open forest, you could move around and position yourself tactically so you could get into a good position, you kind of have to become cannon fodder in the final stage where you run into the corridors. In the match you're seeing, we did eventually win, but by the skin of our teeth. We really had to make a strong push, and many people died in that final stage, when in the previous stages we could just move up methodically and tactically. So that's something I'm not a massive fan of, when the game becomes overly chaotic because it puts too many players in too small an area. I'm afraid I don't have any footage to show you of this example, but Crate is like crazy bad for this. So Crate looks visually spectacular. You've got the red smoke, the new walkers from the First Order. It's something that looks visually astonishing to me. Like, at max settings on the PC, this is a feast for my eyes. But when you go into the caves and the caverns and the Resistance base, or the abandoned Rebel base, and you go into the final stage where you're forced into corridors, it is horrible. It's not even fun to play anymore, because you're getting players, 40 players forced into these tight corridors, and you're just getting blown up by random grenades, these heavies who are just shooting constantly into a single point. The skill factor begins to evaporate, and it becomes random who does well at that point. And again, it's just something that I'm not a massive fan of. If you look at something in Walker Assault for 2015's Battlefront, take the Hoth level, that was always an open space. You know, the first stage, the second stage. The second stage had an aspect where one portion of the level was close quarters combat, but you could, at the same point in time, go out into the open snowfields. It never forced you into those small corridors, whereas this game, in too many of the maps, pushes you into very small corridors. I think Galactic Assault should have almost exclusively focused on large open maps and never pushed you together, because there are just too many players involved in that. But again, I do appreciate, well, firstly, the number of maps is nice, although it's frustrating that you can't give a preference for the map you play in Galactic Assault, but maybe that will come further down the line. But yeah, those overly claustrophobic close quarters combat sections where too many players are in the same place at once and you just lose all control of your ability to contribute, and the players who do well are often ones that just get thrown into an opportunistic moment. My advice for enjoying Galactic Assault would be to just enjoy it from the point of view of a spectacle, of the immersion factor, of the idea that you're in this massive epic battle in the Star Wars universe. Don't try to think of it as something too competitive. I mean, if nothing else, you as an individual are only 1/20th of your entire team. How much can one person do during that to influence the victory of a game? In Starfighter Assault and Blast, I feel like I can do a lot to win, but yeah, in Galactic Assault, you feel like your sense of agency can at times begin to evaporate. And then I'll go over two modes that I don't have any footage for very quickly because I just don't play them that much. One is Heroes versus Villains, which is crazy, but I'm glad it's there. You know, it's quite fun to see heroes just slashing at each other. The biggest issue here is that they just don't have a good lightsaber combat mode. Something I've suggested to some people before would be quite good is if you take the For Honor combat system and put it into a lightsaber combat game, that would work beautifully. But as it stands, it's just a button mashing contest, really. And also you've got Strike, which is fantastic for playing with someone else. So if you're enjoying playing the combat with somebody else that you know that you can coordinate with, Strike can be a lot of fun. But as someone who more often just jumps into matchmaking on their own, I don't really do too much of Strike, but I can see the potential there is very strong. Also, you've got campaign mode. Now, I won't go into campaign mode too much to avoid spoilers, and also it's still being developed, right? They're still making new additions to campaign mode. But I will say this. Even if you don't agree with the creative direction of the narrative that's being used here, what I will say is that this is a massive improvement over 2015 Battlefront. There was nothing there, no campaign mode, you just had a few training missions really to enjoy. Here you have a proper narrative with proper characters, well voice acted, the production values are very strong. Maybe they could have focused on Iden just a little bit more without darting between other well-known characters for nothing else really more than fan service, but it's an improvement, and when a studio does something that is in the right direction, I really have to commend them on that. And a lot of people are really enjoying it. I've spoken to a lot of people who think the story is fantastic and love how it's actually canonical, how it's something that really does influence this proper Star Wars story. You've also got arcade mode, which to me is like what I do for a warm-up, or if I really want to play a hero. So this is effectively just throwing you into various scenarios where you're either a regular class, an elite class, or you're a hero. So you get all the heroes unlocked right from the beginning. So if you haven't unlocked Darth Vader yet, then you can play Darth Vader right from the beginning in arcade if you just want to try him out. This is kind of fun for maybe a few minutes, maybe 15 minutes max. Because the AI are so obvious and blatant, and if I may say so, dull, it's not something that will engross you for a long period of time. It is what it is. It's really something that I would recommend using just to warm yourself up, get ready for the controls, get back into the combat, the flow of things, and then jump into a multiplayer match. You can get some credits which can contribute to some loot boxes in this mode, which is also quite useful. I'm glad it's here. It's not bad. It's just fairly simplistic, and if you so choose, you can do this in split screen, I believe. However, as a PC owner of the game, I can't do that. Why on earth would they omit split screen from the PC version of the game? I don't know, because you can easily hook a PC up to a TV. It's really odd that it's not here, but hey, that's how it is. If you got it on console, you can do it in split screen mode, and also I think it would be really nice if we see a Starfighter Assault aspect in arcade mode, because let's be real here, not everyone wants to play Starfighter Assault online. Some people just want to enjoy it you know, on their own, just for the real immersion factor that it can offer. So arcade mode, really, yeah, just a warm-up mode. Not much more to say than that. Good if you need to earn some credits quickly, like maybe you're just a few off and you need to grind up there. I'd recommend doing it maybe after you've done the campaign, and then before you jump into multiplayer, play through all the scenarios, because by the time you've done that, you'll be kind of fit and ready and familiar with the characters so that you can then be competitive online. It's something that I did. Also, something I thought I'd address, because it was a point of controversy towards the game's launch, was unlocking certain hero characters. I'd agree that I wish they were all just unlocked right from the beginning in multiplayer. I think particularly in heroes versus villains, it's very strange that you can't choose from all of them. You have to spend large sums of credits. Even though they reduced them, you still have to spend quite a lot to unlock them. The most expensive being Darth Vader and Luke. But if you really want to play Luke, or you really want to play Darth Vader, just do what I just recommended. Play through the campaign, play through arcade mode, and then you'll be just a few credits shy of unlocking one of them. Then unlocking the second one can be a bit harder, but if you just spend it on the heroes, you can get the one you want. It's a bit annoying because, I mean, I still, even after 58 hours of play, I still don't have Palpatine, I still don't have Iden, and it just feels like an arbitrary gate there. I don't think that's something they had to do, but it is what it is, and it hasn't massively detracted from my love for the game, especially as I've mentioned before, most of my time here is spent in Blast and in Starfighter Assault, which don't feature the heroes, other than the hero ships, which are, by the way, I think they're all unlocked maybe other than Rey. I think there's one that's locked from the beginning, but Rey's ship is the Millennium Falcon, and you can play as Han Solo's Millennium Falcon anyway, so yeah, it's not a big issue in my opinion. So, wow, this has been a long ramble here, and it's a video that I really did hesitate to make, but I think it's important to do so. I by no means defend what EA wanted to do with this game, but I absolutely appreciate what DICE and Criterion have done in terms of creating something here that feels extremely Star Wars and feels very fun and refined to play. It's a real tragedy in a way that such a good game was dragged down by such a poisonous progression system, and although it doesn't necessarily destroy the actual experience of the game, it has without a doubt destroyed its reputation. If the loot box system, the pay-to-win system, had never been put into this, I could have easily seen this winning Game of the Year awards. Same thing for Shadow of War, in fact, right? It would have done so well. But because they decided to be greedy and ask players to pay more on top of an already expensive purchase, especially if you get the deluxe edition, they have utterly destroyed their ability to receive any true critical acclaim. Even IGN, who regularly displayed adverts for the game, didn't talk about the game as favourably as even I'm doing here. If you have made it this far, thank you very much for sticking with me. I know this has been a very long, very rambling video, but I really do appreciate it. As always, people, thanks very much for watching, and see you next time.